Let's get started with telling your Gear Up story. Our guest speaker today is Shayna Englin. Shayna is the principal of Englin Consulting. She's working with NCCEP and the Gear Up community to strengthen advocacy efforts to ensure sustained or increased federal funding toward Gear Up. Shayna and her team help organizations, causes, and campaigns move people to action to impact policies and politics. She holds a Master in Public Policy degree from Harvard John F. Kennedy School of Government. Let me go ahead and turn this over to Shayna.
Great. Thank you, Diane. And thanks to everyone for participating. Let's dive right in with just some discussion of why is it important for us to tell the Gear Up story. And I think we can get to there from why is it important to tell great stories at all. And Mother Teresa maybe told it best when she said, if I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will. And stories is what helps us and helps those we need with us look at the one and decide to act. Stories work because they're memorable and because they're persuasive, much more so than statistics or facts. Stories move people to action, again, much more than statistics or facts or even pleas. If we tell people about a specific story that they can understand and relate to, studies show that they're far more likely to act. And stories are a great way to empower our Gear Up community, our students, families, partners, teachers, and Gear Up professionals to engage in the larger advocacy effort and to really make their amazing efforts more broadly known and powerful. So just as a little bit more backup about why it's so important for us to tell great stories, I want to talk a little bit about some research done by researcher Paul Slovich out of the University of Oregon. And he does research on how people respond to human emergencies broadly. In a Washington Post reporter, Shankar Vedantam wrote a book called The Hidden Brain that focused quite a bit on Dr. Slovich's research. And particularly the finding that people give half as much when presented with twice as much reason to give. And there are two stories I want to tell. I want to quote from the Hidden Brain book, one about the girl and the millions and one about the girl and the boy. So Dr. Slovich once told volunteers about a 7-year-old girl in Mali who was starving and in need of help. They were given a certain amount of money and asked how much they were willing to spend to help her. On average, people gave half of their money to help the girl. Dr. Slovich asked another group of volunteers the same question, except instead of the girl, volunteers were told about the problem of famine in Africa and that there were millions of people in dire need of help. The volunteers in the second group gave half as much money as the volunteers in the first group. Dr. Slovich took this experiment that showcased that little girl in Africa one step further. He told another group of volunteers about a little boy in Mali. One group of volunteers was asked whether they would give money to the little girl. Another was asked whether they would donate money to the little boy. And a third group of volunteers was told about both the boy and the girl and asked how much they were willing to give. Volunteers gave the same amount of money when told about either the boy or the girl. But when the children were presented together, the volunteers gave less. So when going from the 1 to the million, people were far less likely to be as helpful. And even going from 1 to 2 lessened people's willingness to act and act in a helpful way. So we want to make sure that we're telling Gear Up stories that give the people that we need to engage in our work one critical story that they can relate to and latch onto and act. And for our particular purposes, we need to get really good at this because when it comes to advocacy and ensuring funding for Gear Up, great stories are going to help us win. So what makes a great story? And again, this is another area where there's been quite a bit of research and work, and it turns out that there are some consistent things that make a story great and help people connect to it. First, your story needs a hero, not lots of heroes. We're not talking about Gear Up students. Your story needs a hero, one of your students, one of your teachers, one of your parents, a Gear Up professional or a partner. And that hero has to be a real person. Again, it has to be a singular person. Think that little girl, not that little girl and a little boy, one person. And it's got to be someone that the person you're telling the story to, the policymaker, the staffer, the would-be funder, the parents that you're trying to engage further in the advocacy, it has to be someone that they can relate to. So your story needs a hero. Your story needs also a villain, something or someone to root against. And for our purposes, it's something to root against. And again, it's really important that it not be a whole bunch of things, but that you pick one particular force, one particular challenge that's the villain in your Gear Up story. So villains in our Gear Up stories, they might be family history. No one in the student's family has ever gone to college. Or they might be challenges of the community. There isn't a community value around higher education, or there's a lot of peer pressure against real commitment to education. There might be high levels of poverty, and that's connected to other things. But pick one of those things. Again, statistics on college success, that's another thing that if you can pick one that really illustrates how difficult it is and the challenges that your hero faces, that can work too. So your story needs a villain, something that we don't want to see win. Great stories have struggle and they have catalyst. We need to root for the hero to struggle through something to win. And there has to be a catalyst, something that engages that struggle and initiates that struggle and gives structure to that struggle. And that's a way for the struggle to help our hero defeat the villain. So in our instance, Gear Up is the catalyst. Gear Up is the thing that enables the struggle for our student to work hard and to ignore the peer pressure around him that encourages him to focus on things other than school. Or for the parent, Gear Up is the catalyst for this parent to fight for their student and to engage in the parent engagement program and chaperone university visits and go door to door in their neighborhood to get other parents involved. That's the struggle that that parent goes through. Partners who invest supplies or money or time and really engage in their Gear Up partnership despite a really difficult economy or a difficult community to do business in. That's a struggle that Gear Up catalyzes in our hero, the partner. And of course, teachers and Gear Up professionals who make extraordinary investments to help their students succeed. Maybe the teacher that is the hero of a given story spends her own resources for student supplies or spends his own time outside of work making home visits to ensure that students and families are engaged and are supported in the way that they need to. So again, Gear Up is our catalyst, is the thing that enables this epic struggle of our hero to defeat our villain. Great stories also connect to universal values. And these are values that resonate with our audience and that also are specific and resonate with our Gear Up community and our Gear Up program. So there are things like hard work and community, perseverance, and of course, social equity and justice. So when we talk about the struggle that our hero goes through and the Gear Up program as a catalyst for that struggle, we want to connect it back to these core values that really exemplify the work that we do and why Gear Up is important. And finally, great stories have a call to action. They help the listener answer the question of how can I be a hero? So when we're doing advocacy, we by and large are saying to policymakers or staffers, the call to action, you can be a hero in this story by making sure that Gear Up has what it needs to continue. Or partners, teachers and professionals, the audience has to be engaged in this way of how can they be heroes in their own Gear Up stories. So taking these broad concepts of what makes great stories, how can you then go out to your Gear Up community and empower your folks to tell great Gear Up stories of their own? And I'm going to suggest some questions that you can start with. And if you walk someone through these questions, that should help you get to these core pieces of great stories. So first, who are you? Not just what's your name and what do you do, but really, who are you? Are you fundamentally a student? Are you a parent? Have you always been a teacher and that's what you're all about? Who are you? What do I need to know about you to be able to relate to you? What are your dreams and aspirations? And that can be both new as a result maybe of Gear Up, or that can be something I've always known that I wanted to be a doctor and I just didn't know what my path was going to be. So what is it that you're hoping for? And this again gets to it helps us get to answer the question of what is the struggle? What is the villain? What are we trying to get through? What has stood in the way of your dreams and aspirations? Again, we're trying to get to that villain question here. And importantly, what has been your Gear Up experience? How did Gear Up as a catalyst help you around or over or through the obstacles in your path? Again, we're trying to get to the very specific details of the struggle for our hero to defeat that villain. And we want to be as specific as possible here. Give one specific example of your Gear Up experience. So again, we're looking for the teacher to talk about how she went and visited a particular family and made sure that the students stayed on track. We want a story from a partner to give a specific example of we were thrilled to donate those calculators and I can't tell you how exciting it was to actually bring them to that classroom. Looking for as detailed and as colorful specifics as we can to illustrate this struggle. And we want to get to the end, to the resolution. So our hero has traveled this path. They have battled this villain. They have been through this catalyst, the Gear Up program, and have made it through the other side. And we want the win here. Where are you and what are you doing now? And again, in very specific ways, want to relate that back to what we know about the struggle, what we know about the villains, and what we know about who this person really is. What are we trying to communicate about this? And then finally, we want to ask our hero, what can I do now? How can I help you?
Thanks, Shayna, for sharing these great tips on how to tell our Gear Up stories more persuasively. To wrap up this webinar, I would like to share, firstly, some quick tips on how to prepare to tell your stories, and secondly, some highlights of upcoming opportunities to share those stories. So first, the quick tips. Make sure to build an advocacy team with a hero, but also include other folks that have supported the hero along the way. Include at least one student, one parent, one teacher, and one Gear Up partner in your advocacy team so that you can tell the whole Gear Up story. Second, it's very important that you practice, practice, and practice. You need to get your advocacy team together so they know each other and that you can work well as a team. Go over your talking points, plan your speaking order, and do a dry run, at least once. It will boost the team's confidence and get you warmed up. So now that you've put your advocacy team together and they are ready to deploy, following are some opportunities where they can share their Gear Up stories. Coming up, the Capitol Hill visits on July the 24th in Washington, D.C. Don't miss out on this opportunity to meet your members of Congress in person during the 2012 NCCEP Gear Up Annual Conference. Check out the new All You Need to Know About Meeting with Your Members of Congress section on NCCEP's website. Another opportunity is August District Days. These will be August the 6th through the 31st in your districts and your states. As you know, Congress is in recess during the month of August, and all members return to their local districts and states to meet with their constituents. This is a great opportunity to schedule a visit to your member's district office or invite them to visit your Gear Up site. The third and final opportunity to tell your Gear Up story is the 2012 National Gear Up Week, which will take place September the 10th through the 14th. Since last year, we've expanded the National Gear Up celebration from one day to a full week. So make sure you plan an event at your site involving your students, your parents, your teachers, and your partners. It's very important that you invite them to join this national celebration. NCCEP will post ideas, logos, and other resources on our website following the annual conference. So once more, thank you all for participating on this webinar, and thank you really for the hard work that you do every day for the most vulnerable students of our nation. Here's our contact information in case you have any comments, questions, or concerns. Thank you very much, and you have a great day.